I got a call maybe 10 o'clock at night saying, "Hey, we thought this was kind of weird." This is an operator, right?
Yeah.
So I was proud of him for giving me a call. "I thought this was kind of weird. Do you think we ought to be foaming?" I was like, "Absolutely not." um, so we need to shut that down right now. Are you next to? Are you in the control room? Because it needs to be now.
Hey, folks, welcome to another edition of the 21st Century Engineer, a podcast that we produce for those people in their mid-career and younger who are in engineering-related fields, civil infrastructure and architecture, and all of those different professions that have impact on people's lives on a daily level. Today, we have I can't be more pleased that Liz has decided to join us today. Liz Rayfield is a longtime friend. She's a chemical engineer, which means she never had to suffer under me unintentionally, excuse me. She did suffer under me intentionally. We worked with Engineers Without Borders when she was a student. As a result of that, I did supervise one of her credits towards graduation. But other than that, I couldn't be more proud of this young lady and what she's achieved. And she had a mental lapse and agreed to come on the podcast and share some of her experiences. Liz, again, it is absolutely astounding. Great to see you after all these years.
Thanks, Dennis.
How about explaining to the audience a little bit about who you are and where you are in your professional walk?
Sure, yeah. So I got a chemical engineering degree, finished that in 2015. During school, as you were saying, was in a lot of different extracurricular things. I figured, they were available. There were certain things that I was really interested in, like helping folks with, some of the things that I was learning. So Engineers Without Borders was a, big part of um, college there at Mississippi State. And then I co-opted with Dow Chemical. So I did 3 terms on and off with them. And I really, really enjoyed the manufacturing environment, working with the operators, walking around, looking at equipment, learning. I remember the first time I saw a PSV and somebody was saying, "Look at that PSV." And I'm looking around like, which one is it? So I can remember,
Well, at least you didn't say
an operator showing me that. Yeah. And so when I graduated, I went down south of New Orleans and I spent, I think, about 8.5 years at a chemical plant down there at a Chevron Oronite facility.
Right.
And they had 2 things professors in chemical engineering school at least told me I would never see. One was wastewater. The other one was batch chemicals. So I was an engineer over batch, some very specialty chemicals, nothing commodity there. And then I was the wastewater engineer for a few years, and I really enjoyed the utilities position. There's a lot of other utilities, but my favorite portion of the utilities that I had was the chemical wastewater.
And
now I'm I guess I've been doing this for 2 years. I rotate to an offshore platform and office facility in Israel. And so I started that a couple years ago. So every other month I'm over there, and every other month I'm not working and someone else is doing my job.
right.
And so I've been doing more procedures and alarms and day-to-day sort of operational business practices after getting an MBA that I finished in 2020.
Right. Well, the environmental engineer in me celebrates the idea. I can't tell you the number of civils that have come through the program and said, "I don't want to ever see environmental again," and they end up on a rig someplace managing a wastewater treatment plant, and, and they write back and go, "Boy, I wish I'd paid more attention in class." But
Yeah, they sent me to school for a couple weeks, for a program to learn about these things because really no one on site had any idea what was going on, right? And
exactly. It's about production. It's not about waste disposal or even waste minimization. That's great. Well, of course, you could have reached out anytime. We'd been happy to help, but that's another time in another life. And this offshore rotation is also quite traditional. So enjoy it while you can. The the 12 on, 12 off, 7 on, 7 off, whatever, whichever rotation you're using. And of course, then on behalf of all the listeners and me, be safe. I mean,
Yeah.
I will one anecdote, but this is about you, not about me. But one anecdote: when I visited Israel, I had the opportunity to go swimming in the Dead Sea, and if you have that chance, do. But
Oh, absolutely.
wear shoes. That
Oh, yeah.
that black sand is running at about 140 to 150 degrees, and it will burn the skin off the bottom of your feet. And I'm here to attest to it. I actually had that happen. I didn't think about it. And in the 5 minutes it took me to walk from the water to the shower, I literally lost all the skin off the bottom of both feet, which resulted in a catastrophic series of events, which we're not going to get into
Ooh,
right now.
well,
So,
that'll ruin your
yeah,
vacation.
yeah, right. So enough about me. Let's roll this thing back and talk a little bit about part of the reason, as you know, the reason I invited you to talk with us, share with us, is I was truly impressed with your ethical understanding, your professional understanding of the responsibility of what it means to be an engineer. In fact, there's a lot of conversation online literally today talking about how engineers are put in a position of liability, responsibility, if you prefer, and yet oftentimes in a lot of environments aren't protected and aren't appropriately compensated. Let's talk a little bit about that. What do you see engineering ethics to be? What's the meaning of being a professional? And let me emphasize for those who are listening, I'm not talking about having a license. I'm talking about being a professional. I've known people who have had a professional engineering license for 30 or more years and have never practiced as a professional at any time in their lives. And I've known people like Liz who have been a professional from day one, albeit may or may not have a license. So, Liz, what's your perspective on what it means to be a professional in the engineering environment?
Yeah, I think it boils down to that saying of if you see it, you own it. But then even more than that is if you don't know the answer, then finding the right resources to make sure that you do
Yeah,
have the right solution or you're implementing the right thing or you're moving forward on something that's not going to end up in a disaster, right? Because the places that
yeah,
I work can, this is not a very small, it's not a small little glitch. It's a it's a huge problem that could possibly happen. So I think it's, taking the time to actually fix issues. That's one thing. Not just sweep it under the rug. And then the second one is finding the right people or resources to make sure that you do have the right thing that you're going to implement.
well, in part it means admitting what you don't know and
Yeah,
and
yeah, of
and
course.
and finding the answers, being willing to pursue it. And in your environment, that mistake or ignoring the mistake literally could be catastrophic.
Right.
It's, I mean, I'm not saying that, say, in my field where a wastewater treatment plant or a water treatment plant fails and it kills people or poisons people or causes cancer or whatever, to have a petrochemical facility or a chemical manufacturing facility blow up, and unfortunately, too many of them are, uh, as a result of issues we won't get into right now. But yeah, that's a big responsibility, and recognizing
Yeah.
that's important. It's not
And
something
I
you
think
can
it's a
shed.
yeah, and I think it's a, it's a we're in a not in a risk-free environment, right? So
Right.
everything that we're doing involves risk, and so it's thinking about that risk realistically. It's ranking those risks and deciding, which ones can we put safeguards in and do next year versus, you know, what safeguards do we have to prevent these other ones? So, um, you know, I spent a couple years managing the budget for the chemical plant and which projects are going to get done and which ones have the highest priority and which ones do we need to do today versus 5 years from now. And um, I think kind of bringing the right resources and, you know, making sure that we do have the ability to continue running safely. Like, I think that's part of that professional discussion and
What
hard conversations too.
Yeah, and what I hear you saying is really that recognizing that responsibility, the ethical responsibility that we have in terms of making sure facilities are safe, that things are done in an honest and competent way, and at the same time accepting the fact that we're accountable as engineers for the decisions we make and the impacts they have, and that's pretty big. That's not something one ignores in that process. The there are a lot of individuals who'll be listening right now simply because of the nature of who I've talked to and who we've talked to in this podcast that are going to be looking for the professional engineering ticket for the lack of, and I put that recognizing I'm on a licensure board. I've worked for licensure support capacities in a lot of different ways, and I am licensed and certified, which goes beyond licensure. But but if I'm, I guess the question becomes: do you see there being insurmountable hurdles to becoming a professional as opposed to becoming a professional engineer? Off the wall. I know. I keep
I think
that's a
that the
tangential.
hurdle,
Yeah.
kind of, I guess, going into like, you know, why not be a professional engineer? Is that kind of what the what you're going for?
Sure. Well, in part.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think the hurdle. I don't see any reason not to be a professional, right? You should never, you know, say something that is factually incorrect or not act on issues or, um, you know, not speak up when you see something. I think
Exactly.
it should go further into you should always, like when I was the wastewater engineer, I didn't come into that role knowing the environmental law, but I immediately opened the 1,000-page document and read everything around, you know, I need to be accountable for this amount of TOC and this pH and, you know, this is how we sample it. And, you know, if I hadn't have read that and just went about my day job, I wouldn't have caught the things that were going to like impact our surroundings. Right.
Right.
And so I think it's taking action to, you know, serve the community or serve the job in the way that the best way that you can. So I don't think that, you know, if you do have a hurdle there, then you do need to speak up and say, I need support in this area, right? But from like a professional licensure standpoint, I think, you know, working for Chevron, I was never expected or asked, I guess, to get one. It's not saying that no one I worked with didn't have one, but you know, we tend to go to those engineering um, companies that would do the work for us that did need a stamp,
Yeah.
typically civil work. But, or if we had a new design of, you know, we would get mechanical engineering stamps, you know, for new equipment, installation, things like that. But um,
Well, that's an interesting perspective
yeah,
because coming in working in an environment where the industrial exemption effectively means that you can practice as an engineer. And again, I applaud you for choosing to practice as a professional engineer, not as licensed because you don't have a license, as I recall, but rather in the sense that you, without the license, still choose to practice as a professional. And I applaud you for that. I truly do applaud you for that. So the industrial exemption has oftentimes been looked at as an excuse for people to be less than professional, and I don't, and you don't see it that way, and that's great. The You chose not to pursue the license for whatever reason, and do you have any regrets about that? Is there ever
So I did right out of school. I got the FE, right?
right?
It's as most folks do. It's easy enough right out of school. At the end of your last class. And I think that if I would have done it, immediately, the 4 years after school, I would have stuck in my discipline, right? I would have stayed very strict into chemical or something. If I went back and did it today, I'm not sure I would pick that same discipline. I think I would be a little bit broader. I might go take some classes around something else, maybe materials or environmental or something. Um, because now that I've seen more, I know what I'm more interested in today. I'm not as interested in designing a distillation column, but I am interested in a few different, broader type disciplines now.
That's an absolutely interesting perspective I had never taken. Thank you for sharing it. I'm seriously, the idea is a lot of states, mine included, my board included, will allow you now, unlike when you graduated, you take the FE while you're in school, you can study for the PE exam the next year. That you don't
Oh,
have to
really?
wait the 4. And if you had done that, then you would have been presumably locked in. Though the PE is simply means you're a professional engineer and practice in your areas of expertise. You went on and got expertise in environmental management, environmental engineering, and as many chemical engineers do, and could still practice that way. But the idea that years later, now working in a different area, maybe that's where I need to take the exam, is a good argument for waiting to find out what your expertise is, what your skill set is, and what you build that competency in. That's a very different perspective than is being argued in the licensure community right now. And I appreciate you sharing it.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a lot of people's experience, but same could be said. Some people take gap years, before going into school because they don't know what to do. But I certainly that wasn't my experience, and I wouldn't have wanted
Yeah,
to do that. But
yeah, yeah.
um,
Well, we're all
just looking back on it, yeah, I think that's how I would go today. I
yeah.
certainly wouldn't be design. You wouldn't hire me to design your distillation column.
Well, maybe we would, but in fact, if I had a distillation column need, I probably would, if for no other reason than much the same way as you went about making sure you were competent in doing your environmental engineering. I would have
Fair.
confidence that you would go about doing the same thing in your distillation column design. I have no need for a distillation column. I, Maybe if I started a brewery, I could maybe,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think I would learn it if you made me the head person in your brewery, I suppose I would learn it.
So for those of you that want to get into a distillery, here's your engineer. Give her a call. Um, and around here, who knows? Beer, bourbon, whatever the case, a good Scotch. Of course, you might have to go to Scotland to do that. That would be fun.
Fair.
Um, let's roll this back into talking about your perspective and understanding. You've obviously got an understanding of ethics, but I guess what I'm asking is, how do you see ethics applied in the things that you do day to day? What is the fundamental foundation of your ethical commitment to the profession and to the company you work for and the people they serve?
Yeah, I've got probably a couple examples.
Oh, great.
Like I think I'll start like more broadly.
Okay.
I think when you start out as an engineer, you often come up with the ideas, maybe you put them down on paper. You're proud of them. You take them to the boss, and the boss says, yes or no, like work on this or change this or good to go.
Right.
You get a little bit more experience. You start to seen as, the SME in this area. You probably know more than your boss at some point in this specific thing that you're working on. And you start to become the person that people are coming to for answers or looking to you for advice. And that's when I think that the ethics come into play because if folks are asking you, you know, hey, is it safe to do this temperature? Is it can we change this and continue running? Um, at least in the industrial industry, there's a lot of different things that you need to do yet, like your MOC, your to like commission it back to readiness
Mhm.
with a PSSR, things like that. And you can tell someone, like, this is, it's possible to tell someone, hey, it's ready to go, start it up. Or, yeah, sure, that should be fine, without really knowing, or without having to prove it to them, right? That it's
And
safe.
is
And
that your expertise, gut feeling, a roll of the dice?
so I think that's where the ethics come in, is if it is a roll of the dice, then it shouldn't be what you're moving forward with, right?
Right.
It should be based on science or analytical evidence, rather than, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the right temperature. Yeah, I think that's the right setting.
That
Because
that expertise quotient, that, and I say gut feeling because at the end of the day, gut feeling comes from the development of knowledge and expertise and application and whatever. But yeah, so
yeah,
you're basing it in understanding of fact, not just wishful thinking.
right. And folks trust you, right? They are trusting
Yeah.
that you are giving them the answer that is going to help them go back home that night to their families, and
Right.
day after day, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
um, so those types of ethics, like knowing that you aren't just taking the easy way out, or something like that, is, I think, comes into play, especially as you become more independent in your, I guess, career.
Yeah, I'm going to drag you down that rabbit hole for just a little bit because it's to me an important point. You used the word trust, and I think trust, to build trust, you have to act a certain way, and acting a certain way builds trust. And so it really becomes almost a chicken and egg thing. The idea here is that trust you're talking about comes, I argue, and this is so therefore it becomes a question. Contradict me, and feel free to do so. But I would argue that trust comes from the fact that you act ethically, that you act professionally, you act knowledgeably, and that means you're competent in your area. You've done the work, you've done the research, and you've had experience, and that's a body of expertise as well as your education. And that's, again, that's kind of what licensure tries to do. But even without licensure, following that guideline of experience, knowledge, and education, and by applying that appropriately, ethically, you end up developing trust, which allows you to continue to do that. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you yeah, if you're consistently, or not even consistently, it doesn't take more than one time of
Well, it depends who you're working with.
someone coming, yeah, of someone asking you, right, what's the risk that we install this, or push this to next year? And you say, it's nothing. It's never happened before. It's never happened before here, or in industry, or in the world, or
Yeah, 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 yeah.
is it possible? I think,
And is it the
those
right
types
thing
of
to do
things.
versus the wrong thing to do? I mean,
Right.
you still have that. Maybe it's never been done before, but by all account, it is safe to do. It's the right thing to do, and therefore, there's very little reason not to do it. And the cost benefit ratio of doing, not doing, and all plays into it as well. And again, you're still back
Yeah.
into applying your engineering expertise and your ethical applications perspectives to ensure that at the end of the day, everybody gets to go home.
Right.
Yeah,
And I can share one story
please
that
do. I knew you had another one.
happened happened maybe, I don't, I won't say exact instant, where I was, but I guess it's probably pretty clear. But so we have wastewater permits, right? So
Right.
we're discharging water into the Mississippi River, as do a lot of different industrial sites. And so we have a limit on what types of the total amount of carbon, the pH, different specific chemicals that we might have in our plant, and also visibly what it looks like coming out. So it tends to be a little bit warmer than the river, which is permitted. So you can go out and see the fish and whatnot out on the wharf. Kind of that like to hang out next to the discharge line.
Mm-hmm.
We had an instance where we had cleaned out a reactor, and it wasn't contained,
Mm-hmm.
the material that came out of it, and it caused some surfactant into our wastewater stream that was causing foam in the river.
Oh,
That is visibly not allowed, nor is
imagine,
the
imagine.
discharging of said material. So I got a phone call. I was actually back at Mississippi State. I was at a bar with a friend.
Yeah.
I think it was Dave's. We had a pizza and whatnot. And I got a call maybe 10 o'clock at night saying, hey, we thought this was kind of weird. This is an operator, right?
Yeah.
So I was proud of him for giving me a call. I thought this was kind of weird. Do you think we ought to be foaming? I was like, absolutely not. So we need to shut that down right now. Are you in the control room? Because it needs to be now.
Yeah.
So, in that point, I was looked to as like, the expert of what we can and can't do. And the whole facility stayed shut down for a week. And that's a lot of money.
That hurt.
If you are, that's a lot of money. So it was all hands on deck with finding a filter for all of our wastewater to run through. Working with Nalco, our at the time water service, provider, and different solutions of how it can get the surfactant out of the water. And there was some really tough conversations that week of, what if no one sees it? Like, I really don't care. Or is it really in the permit? I'm like, would you like me to print out the page and show you where it says that? Even if it's not in the permit, this is not okay, So
which I think is actually
there
a
was some
better
really
answer
tough.
at the end of the day. Just it may not. Would you want to drink this? You want to go swimming in this?
Yeah.
Knowing what it is.
What about those fish that hang out there every day?
Yeah. Go fishing off the pier and watch. When you cook the fish, watch the foam rise. Wow, that's good for you. I mean, it's sad in some ways that people turn around and ask those kinds of questions. Well, do we have to? What do you mean, do we have to? Based on what premise? Well, is it legal? Well, sometimes doing what's just legal isn't doing what's ethical or professional.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You have to recognize the situation for the impact that it has. And again, as I continue to do, I applaud you for recognizing that and carrying that forward, standing up for it, standing up for the rest of us. I'm not going to, I don't want you to answer, but when you mentioned where you were discharged, where the discharge point of compliance was, if nothing else, immediately I started thinking, is this upstream or downstream from New Orleans water intake? So but that's the kind of thought, is somebody going to drink this? Is this going to impact the environment? Is it going to impact people? And the answer is, yeah, at the end of the day, possibly. And
I'll point out the person that gave me the most, strife no longer is with, I guess both of them are no longer with the company, but there was, I will say it got out to like, I won't say screaming, but very elevated discussions that week, right? This is a lot of money to lose in a week, right?
Yeah.
So, and being that person to say absolutely we will not come up until we have found a solution for this. It I mean, it changed a lot about the plant too, because we changed our cleaning practices. We changed the permitting to even do the cleaning, and the way that we decided how we were going to clean it, with what chemicals, and um, the permitting process to get material into the sewer. You can't, like, that should have been there already, but those types of things came out of the lessons learned and the root cause analysis. So
That's great. I mean, it's not just a matter of responding, but prevention. What do we have to do to make sure that doesn't happen again? And again,
yeah.
to the listeners, I would suggest this is a hallmark of a professional. It's not just doing the minimum; it's doing the required work, uh, the hard work, the expensive work, the impactful work, and then looking for ways to make sure that things are better moving forward, not just status quo. The One of the things I always hated, even when I was a kid, was the old comment: "If it ain't broke, don't fix it." No, if it ain't broke, is there a better way to do it? And
Yeah.
that's looking for improvement and making things better for today and tomorrow. I think is a hallmark of what we do as professionals going forward. Okay, with that said, Liz, let me ask you. This idea of what I'm going to frame as the gray area that you expose. Is it in the rules? Well, does it have to be in order for us to act? Is kind of what I took away from what you said. So that to me, that's kind of a gray area. Um, do you think that this is something that is going to promote or lead to a change in the vision towards licensure in industry, or do you not see any real interest at the industrial level to be more proactive towards licensure and responsibility and the rest of what we've
Mm.
been talking about? And I'm not talking about your specific company or I'm just talking about in a bigger picture. Um, do you see industry realizing the value of hiring professionals, licensed or otherwise?
Hmm. I can't say that I've been in any discussions that
Oh, I backstory all the time. Amen.
included that that included that type of thing. I know. I'm not sure if I shared this with you, but I recently took a buyout with Chevron, so I actually won't be working there for very much longer.
No, I didn't know.
Um,
Congratulations,
so
I think.
yeah, so I will, need to be looking for a job in the future.
Okay.
And as I look for positions, a lot of them do say PE required. And so that often, that pushes me out of those positions unless I do go back and get one, right?
Do
Um,
it.
but these aren't the types of companies that like I've worked for in the past,
Right.
that they're not the Dows and the
Right.
Chevrons. So um it, I think that it would broaden my ability to get a job if I were to go back and get one.
Yeah.
But
Well, the analogy that I'll give you, it's an old story, but it still holds true. Back several decades ago now, different industry. We had a major layoff in the mining industry out west, and as it was recounted to me by individuals working in that industry, those individuals in the mining field who had their PE ticket uh, had jobs within 3 to 6 months. The people that did not, that just as experienced, sometimes even more, but did not have the professional engineering ticket, as I call it, still looking for jobs after 2 years. What you're finding is exactly right within the industry, within a company, moving laterally and even vertically within the company and not having the license may not be that important. You're trusted. You've developed a reputation for accountability and ethical responsibility and professionalism, which helps you move up. But it's much like all those great grades you got when you were in school. Nobody knows about them unless there's some kind of honor society sitting on your resume saying, "Hey, I was a top performer." The PE does the same. I've demonstrated my competency at a national level. Uh,
Mhm.
Minimum competency, realistically, but competency nevertheless. So, yeah, as I said, go get it. I mean, it's you've got the time now. I There's never doubt in my mind you won't pass the exam if you put in the time to study for it. And which exam, I'll leave you make that decision. the,
Yeah.
the environmental exam has its own depths and breadths that you haven't been exposed to, but you can study up. Going back and restudying your chemie exam, go on the NCAAS website and look at the outline for the exams. That would be where I would start. See which ones have the content, the outline that fits your expertise, your knowledge best, and then
Yeah.
study and reinforce those areas. And remember, as I just shared with a friend of mine online yesterday, you don't have to make 100. All you want to do is pass this thing. I shared the story I shared was that when I was taking my written exam for my private pilot's license, I came back and was lamenting to my pilot instructor, my flight instructor, that I had gotten two wrong out of the exam, and therefore I was sitting there with a 90. I think it was a 96, 2 points for whatever. And his response to me, and it really kind of bothered me a little bit when he said it. His answer is, "Well, that's a lot of wasted effort. All you needed was a 70." And it was like, yeah, but I don't want to be minimally competent, crawl into a cockpit and kill myself
Yeah.
or kill somebody
Right.
else. It really wasn't about competency. Competency came other ways. The exam is simply a tool, and going forward. And if there's anything I can do to help you with that pursuit, references or whatever, just reach out. Be more than happy to help you in any way I can to see you get that license and open those doors that right now can't get pried open. We're pretty much at the end of our time, so I guess we need to kind of wrap things up. As much as I hate to
Okay.
say goodbye, it has been a real pleasure to talk to you and see you and meet you and reconnect with you. The work you did with me overseas in Zambia and back at school with EWB and the activities you were involved in were stellar. I always appreciated your effort. I always found you to be a hard worker, knowledgeable, strong person, and I appreciated those skill sets and the way you openly applied it. You've done that again today. You've openly shared. You've provided information. I hope that the listeners um, take to heart. So with that kind of a loose frame, we've covered a lot of points. Is there anything that we've
Mhm.
missed? Any final thoughts you'd like to share um, with those that are listening to us today?
You know, I don't know if most of your folks listening are civil, but you might even be called into a LOPA or a HAZOP discussion in an industry somewhere, and those are the biggest times I think it really pays off to do your homework and do your due diligence and um, understand the risks of the plant and be ethical and spelling those out and having the right risk assessments and analysis. And um, I think you've got to stand up for what's right, and there will be times 100% that it is hard to do that, and folks above you are just not feeling that because it either is more time or more money or not the law to do it. And it's always the right thing to do. You've got to stand up anyway. Hadn't been fired yet, and I've always pushed back, and I know I've developed a name for being that one to push back on on things, or
Good.
be the one that's gonna stand up and say, nope, you can't start up yet, we're not finished, or so.
Well, we're back into that trust piece. Being willing to say no, uh, and having the expertise, the authority, the subject area expertise, that leadership capacity, all of which are
Yeah.
synonyms for
even if you don't have the authority or you're not a senior engineer in your
Right,
first
absolutely.
year and it's yeah, you've still gotta, be okay with standing
Well,
up, so.
and going back to other seminars, other web podcasts I've done, and more in the future, the, and I'm going to just put it out there: you're a woman in an environment that oftentimes women are discounted. So you also had that to overcome. You had to establish yourself because of your capacity. And again, I
Yeah,
applaud you for that. I mean, there's too many dinosaurs out there. Dinosaurs are old white men that are long past their expiration point, uh, that are just functioning with all the wrong value sets. And that's what I call them. I hope I am not one. I am an old white guy, but, but I hope I'm working on the right premise. So it's important, and this is why I wanted you to be here and share these thoughts with the audience. And again, I applaud you for standing up and making sure that people stay safe, that people get to go home at the end of the day, that the environment's not contaminated, and that what's produced is of benefit to man, and respects the resources that are used in order to produce them. And I know that's all characteristic of your portfolio of expertise. And that suggests to me, at least, you'll have very little trouble finding another job, though get the PE. With that, we're going to wrap it. Folks, as I always say, I hope the time you've invested in this conversation, you find pays dividends in your professional life as you move forward, regardless what stage you are. The object here is to let you know that the challenges you face are challenges we all face at different points in our career, that the obstacles to success are the same obstacles we all have to overcome, and that by reaching out and being part of a group, developing that network of professionals that work in this field, you'll have both perspective and understanding, so that, like Liz, you'll stand up and say, not now, hopefully later. And with that, I appreciate you being with us, and I hope that you'll join us for another occasion in the not too distant future. Till then, take care.